on CFAX 1070.
Interesting course is going to be offered starting later this month at the Esquimalt Recreation Center. We'll do the commercial toward the end, I guess. But I want to bring on the air the teacher, I guess. Let me read you the bit of the publicity bump here. Braille training is offered to the blind and sighted alike in Victoria. Braille is a 200-year-old 6-dot reading system that has predominantly been used by blind people. While it is a form of literacy that is vital to the blind, its use is not widespread because the dominant sighted members of society don't even think about it. That is why Blindway Training and Consulting Services is offering its right-on-the-dot Braille training program for the blind and sighted alike. Students will learn to read and write Braille letters from A to Z, come away with a positive message about blindness. I want to welcome to the program on this portion Elizabeth Lalonde. Why would a sighted person be motivated to study, to learn Braille, ma'am? Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate your
thank you very
time.
much for having me on, Frank. It's a pleasure. And Braille is it's very important to me, and I want to help other people understand just how important it is to everybody. Braille is, as you were reading in the press release, it's a thriving form of literacy. It's equivalent to print, really. It's the same, only it's a tactile form of reading rather than a visual form of reading. So I believe that, first of all, I think people have a natural sense of curiosity. People like to learn all sorts of things. I know people take foreign languages, they take classes in pottery and sign language. So I think that people would be very interested in learning about this reading code for the blind that's been around for over 200 years. And my main goal is to demystify Braille and to normalize it, to make people understand that, this is an interesting concept, and it's really not that difficult to learn.
It is true, isn't it? I mean, if I study a foreign language, for instance, I go and I learn to speak German or something. I'm not going to retain that knowledge if I don't have or create for myself opportunities to use it.
Yeah, that's most certainly true, Frank. And really, the goal of this class is it's a basics of Braille classes, 7 classes, and the idea really isn't for people to come out and be really proficient Braille readers. It's more just to give people the concept, to introduce it to them so that they know that it exists, and if it ever comes up in their life, say a family member starts losing some vision, or a friend, maybe even themselves, that they know, wow, this is doable, this is possible. And so that's the goal. It's not to really, because it takes practice, like anything, like learning a language. It does take some practice to become proficient.
As I understand it, in Braille, each individual letter is a sequence of dots on the page.
Exactly. Braille is made up of 6 dots, and every letter of the alphabet is a combination of those 6 dots. So we call it a full cell, and there's dot 1, 2, 3 down the left vertical, 4, 5, 6 the right vertical. So say, for example, the first dot 1, we call it is A, the letter A, just when put by itself, and B is the 2 dots, dot 1 and 2. So it's just different combinations that make up the letters.
Understood. What I was getting at is it makes it applicable in a number of languages.
Oh, yes.
Anybody that uses the standard Arabic language.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Is there a
course? There are, and this is actually a point I'm not as aware of, and there are some different Braille in some different languages, and to be honest with you, I have to do a bit more research on that.
But this one works well in English.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. Although Louis Braille was from France, and that's why we have the letter W. The letter W is a little bit different from the rest of the code, and I talk about that in the class. But it's because W was a letter that they had to add when it because he was French. So
that doesn't exist in the French language?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
It's really interesting.
Wasn't aware of that. All right, I was going to ask you about the history of it, but just on the mechanics first, if I may. The letter A, you described how it's one dot placed in how on when one starts reading a page, a dark and stormy night, the first word of the worst novel. How do you
a little bit like today.
Yeah, okay. How does one recognize that that's an A? I mean, that dot has to be in a certain place in relation to the line of text, doesn't it?
Yes,
It needs to be in that upper left corner to mean anything, right?
Yes. So it's it's all in a line. What I teach in the class is I teach people to use what's called a slate and stylus. And that's actually just the same as a pen and paper for sighted people. So it's basically a metal or a plastic slate, a template, with the full. We call them a full cell. So it's a cell where you can puncture 6 dots. So I teach people to put the paper in this template, and then you actually can puncture the dots in each cell. So it's in a line, and it works quite easily. I actually taught a lady. I'm taking a business course downtown right now, and she was interested in putting up some of some numbers for me that were posted in print. So she said, "Oh, I'd like to put those in Braille." And so I took out the slate and stylus, and I showed her, and she picked it up quite quickly. And by the time I got out of my class, she'd already written some things. So I like to teach that because it's a really great way to get people writing it quite quickly.
An accomplished, practiced Braille reader, I've heard, can read as fast as I do, but I have to doubt that just because I can read. Well, I mean, different people read at different rates, but as a minimum, a word at a time.
Yes.
And the Braille reader has to read a letter at a time. That has to be more time consuming, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because that's an interesting point. And really, sighted people on average read, well, I think it's about 200 words a minute on average. There's people that can read more or less than that. Now, I have known Braille readers who have been reading Braille since they were quite little, who can read 300 words a minute or more. And it's much easier, of course, if you learn as a child. Just like learning anything is better if you learn as a child. Adult readers, I was an adult. I learned as an adult myself, and I actually trained at the Louisiana Center for the Blind. And practicing every day, after 9 months, I left being able to read 60 words a minute, which is pretty good for an adult. And adults learning Braille can learn up to, they can work up to 100 words a minute. So basically you are tracking with your fingers, Frank, just like you would track with your eyes. We use our fingers to track. And what you do is you slide your fingers across the line, and then a lot of people will bring one of their hands down to the next line while they're still reading the line above, so that they can sort of get that scanning ahead, just like you would with your eyes. Yeah,
I was just thinking there have to be extra challenges. I mean, you're sitting, you're reading a novel, enjoying the book, and the phone rings and you're interrupted, and getting back and finding your place again.
And finding your place again,
would be more challenging than it is for a sighted person.
I don't know. I tend not to talk too much about how things are more difficult, as the way blind people do things. It takes practice, and it's an alternate way to do it. But really, when you get used to something, it's like anything. You get used to it. You find your little techniques, your little ways of getting around something.
Yeah.
So, we tend to forget what it's like, even as sighted people. We learn, my son is in kindergarten, and he's just learning to read print, and it's a bit of a slow process, and you forget what everybody goes through when they're learning something. So
I suppose. I remember one of my childhood frustrations.
Yes.
Wasn't a real huge frustration. If it was, I suppose I would have worked harder at it and I would have overcome it. But when I was in Boy Scouts, I think it was in Boy Scouts. One of the things I was supposed to do was learn the Morse code, and I never did. And I perceive a great similarity between Morse code and Braille.
I don't know a whole lot about Morse code, but
it's dots and dashes. And,
yes,
I mean, you could just as easily put them on the page, and each one is a letter, and
And what's interesting is actually Louis Braille got the idea for Braille from an army captain in France, because it was called night writing, and they were using it in the dark. They needed some kind of code that could be used more secretly, so that's actually where he got the original concept of Braille, and then he adapted it.
So they wouldn't have to pull out a flashlight and look at the page to read the orders.
Exactly. Yeah. But as I said, with my class, it's more of an introduction and just getting people aware of it, and people can use their eyes too. So when sighted people that are taking the class, I encourage people, if they want, to close their eyes and just hone in on that skill. But you can, as a sighted person, you can learn to read, to sight read Braille as well. So again, it's just to raise awareness about Braille and get it out there in the public that it's not a dinosaur. It's not. Some people will come up to me and say, "Oh, well, now with computers and technology, because we have talking computers now and everything, why do we need Braille?" And
that was going to be one of my questions for you, actually.
Yeah.
Did you want to answer that one? No, actually, ma'am, if you can hold that thought for a moment,
sure.
I do have to take a break here, keep up with our usual obligation, and maybe we can turn our attention there after the break. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about the when and the where and the how much of the classes coming up at the Esquimalt Rec Center. We're visiting with Elizabeth Lalonde. The subject is Braille. Stay with us. Talking on this portion of the program with Elizabeth Lalonde, director of Blindway Training and Consulting Services, and she's offering a course for blind, partially blind, and sighted folks alike in reading of Braille. Just before and I encourage you to pick up your pencil and get ready to write down the details on the times and the wheres and all that. Just before we go there, why do we need Braille in the modern world with where everybody's got a computer, ma'am?
Yeah, it's a good. I was saying that people say that to me a lot, and Braille is not obsolete. It's the same as print, because I always say, well, you're still using print when you're reading your computer screen. If you didn't have print to read, how could you read your computer screen?
I mean, your computer can talk to you now,
and it does talk, and that's an asset, and it's a tool, but it doesn't quite give you exactly the same information. For example, as a child, I was low vision, and I wasn't taught Braille because I was taught I could read large print, and I could, but I could only see about one letter at a time, and it was quite tiring for me. So consequently, they didn't teach me Braille, so I did everything audioly. And I got through, but for example, I'm a very good writer and I've got a great vocabulary, but my spelling is atrocious. It's because I learned everything just through hearing it, and I never really because when you're hearing something, you don't know how something's spelled. And now that I'm reading Braille, it's kind of amazing, because I'll be reading a word and is that how that's spelled? So things like that, you get the real sense. Braille is literacy. Audio is great, but it's not transferable. It's not quite the same as reading itself. That's getting your hands on.
I take it that you can acquire computer keyboards with Braille letters? With Braille?
Well, actually, so there's the keyboard, the regular keyboard that people use, that blind people use. We just type. We learn to type without looking, just as people used to learn to type without looking. Everybody used to do that. So that actually works well. We type, and then the computer speaks what we type, and it also comes out. There's also Braille displays now that there's these electronic pins that pop up, and you can feel the Braille pops up.
On your screen?
On the screen. It's basically a Braille monitor.
So you don't have to print everything to check your work.
Exactly. So that's another great, that's actually where technology and Braille have really come together. You can also buy computer keyboards and note takers that have the Braille, the 6 dots, the six keys, and that's, you learn to type in, when you're doing Braille, you can type in with the 6 keys. And that's another way of writing Braille.
Yeah. I take it that there are more than 26 symbols. There's a symbol for each letter. There must be symbols for the digits as well.
Yes.
And what about punctuation?
I'm glad you asked that. So I've only explained the first level of Braille, which is A through Z. Numbers are there's a number sign, and then you would, for example, A. The letter A is also number 1, and if you put the number sign ahead of it, it becomes a number 1. B is number 2. C is number 3. Then
so you don't need a whole new sequence of dots to create the numbers.
No, it's the same. There's also Nemes Braille, which is a slightly different code that I actually need to learn a little bit more about, and that's for blind people that are learning math. Then there's also computer Braille. There's a few different ones, but the basic one is the first level, A through Z, and then there's the second level of Braille, which is where you get into contractions, and it's a lot like shorthand. So, and this is because Braille does take up a lot of space. I know you can have volumes of Braille sometimes with a really big book. So, for example, the word the, T-H-E, in contracted Braille is just one contraction. It's one symbol.
Okay.
So, and I don't teach this in this first class. This is more of an introduction, but that's another level where it becomes a little bit more, it's more interesting, and you really learn that second level.
All right. Well, let's hear a little more about the class, ma'am. How much of an introduction can you give, and how much of a commitment are you asking people to make?
Well, the class, it starts next Thursday, October 25th, at 6:30. It's at Esquimalt Rec Center, and it's 7 classes. So it's just
one night a week for 7 weeks?
One night a week for 7 weeks, yes.
Okay. And is that enough? Will I actually learn anything in that short a period of time?
Well, our students we did this last year, and our students came away, they knew all the letters, they could write them all, and they were actually reading, some of them with their fingers, they could read words. So it was actually pretty wonderful. When they left, they really felt that they'd had a good introduction.
Yeah. And did you have a number of folks who could see who were taking the class for some other reason than personal immediate need?
Yeah, we had a few, and this year I already have someone who's registered she's actually working out a program for people with disabilities, but she wants to know Braille so she can better understand some of the needs of her clients. So it's
obviously family members might be motivated.
Family members, for example, a lot of people have family members that are losing their sight, and you were asking why would somebody want to. Well, I just think it's just a fascinating subject, and I think businesses too. I think there's some real room there I would like to see Braille in more places. I know, for example, you go to the washroom, and on the door, in a lot of places in the States, there's Braille. You see Braille everywhere, actually, in elevators. People could make Braille business cards. So I really see Braille menus for restaurants. So I see a lot of potential there for just anybody who runs organizations, who work in businesses that might want to learn just the basics so that they can get some of their things in Braille.
Learn that it's not maybe so intimidating as they thought it was, and it would be worth doing in order to better serve that particular clientele.
Exactly. Yeah. And it helps blind people. I think by everybody getting involved, it helps blind people too with our need to raise awareness about how important Braille is, and how it's vital that we keep raising awareness about this form of literacy.
Yeah. You didn't tell me how much.
Oh, so it's $70, $10 a class.
Okay.
And if you are blind or visually impaired, I'm offering the class for free or by donation, because I feel that it's important. Blind people should be learning Braille. I think more blind people should be learning Braille. More people with low vision should be, so I want to offer that to people.
Does this require advance registration? Do we simply call the Esquimalt rec department, or do we call you? Or
if they go directly to my website or call me,
okay.
They could just send me an email.
All right.
You can pay ahead. There's a PayPal button on my website. My website is blindway.ca, and there's more information on the site. And there's a blog as well.
Sorry, did you say Blindway or Blindway?
Oh, sorry, Blindway, BLINDWAY.ca.
Okay, good. Important service that you're offering, ma'am. Next Thursday night, and you want folks to register for the entire 7 weeks. You don't come out and try next Thursday and then don't show up again.
Well, I'm happy to have anybody. So whatever time commitment you can make, I'm happy. That's fine. Whatever I would rather have someone come, 1 or 2 times just to learn and get introduced and have a good experience than not come at all. So everybody's welcome. And whatever time commitment you can make.
Of course, the Esquimalt Rec Center. This is the Rec Center on Fraser Street. This is not the curling rink and arena building.
Oh, that's right.
It's a block over the other side of the mall. Yeah. All right, Ms. Lalonde. Thank you very, very much for your time this afternoon. Good luck with the class.
Well, thank you. I really